Greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining our seminar, our discussion and conversation that we will have tonight on civic engagement and how civic engagement relates to every part of our lives, especially the more significant parts in how we relate in our community and how our community grows and aspires to greater heights. So I have with me tonight um, Pastor Orlando Scott, who is hosting us. He's with the Amplified Church. So thank you very much, Pastor, for hosting this discussion, who is also a speaker. And I am Belinda Pedroso. I forgot I am the moderator. We also have Miss Teresa Hardy. And Teresa Hardy is the president of the National Council of Negro Women in DeKalb County. And she will talk to us in a little while about all that she does in her introduction. And we have Mr. Lyndon Waller. And Lyndon, thank you very much for joining us. He is the Associate Director for the People's Agenda, which is a very, very influential organization on voting rights in the state of Georgia and beyond. So, right, we're shaking our heads and beyond. And again, I am Belinda Pedroso. I am the moderator for our discussion this evening. And my affiliation is that I'm a member of Rose PAC. And Rose PAC is an organization that promotes women who want to run for elected office, as well as I'm a member of several other organizations that we're working with in a collaborative, which includes the National Council of Negro Women, a very, very important organization, as well as I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, so which is the light and heart of my life. So now that you all know who I am, what I will do is I will stop talking. I'm glad you all joined us tonight, and you'll be hearing from me throughout the discussion. But what's most importantly is for us to hear from our speakers who are advocates and professionals in the field of civic engagement and in voting. So I'm going to start with Pastor Orlando Scott, and I would like for each speaker to take 2 minutes or less, introduce themselves, and talk about their interest in civic engagement and experience in civic engagement.
I'm going to pass that over to Miss Hardy so she can speak. Ladies first, and then we'll.
Oh, ladies first. Thank you. Ladies what a gentleman.
Well, thank you, Pastor, for acknowledging that women are first.
That's right.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Teresa Hardy, and I am consider myself as a human rights advocate. And the reason why I say it that way is because in every area that I work in, I do human rights and civil rights. So, and I can myself as being a leader for our people. So that's why it's like that. I serve as the president of the National Council of Negro Women for the DeKalb section. And I also support Ms. Belinda Pedrosi on the state level as the social action committee and anything else that she adds me to. I'm also active in the community in the areas in other social and civic organizations like the 100 Black Women, NAACP. I was the former president. I'm also a deacon of my church. I am a member of Top Ladies of Distinction in New Rock. I'm also a member of National Women of Achievement. And I say all of that because when we get more into our conversation as it relates to engagement, the word engagement, it literally takes all of us to come together to the ultimate cause to have a better community for our community. When I think about civic engagement, I think about not just voting, and I know we're going to talk about voting, but civic engagement starts from the time you wake up in the morning to the time that you lay down, and your interactions with whoever you run into throughout the day. So I'm going to stop right there because I think that's what Ms. Belinda, the moderator, wants us to do, is just introduce ourselves and then allow the others to come in and just do the introduction before we get into the discussion. I thank you, and I look forward to talking with all of you. Thanks. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Hi, Lyndon, who is the Deputy Director of the People's Agenda. Please introduce yourself and talk about your affiliation with Civic Engagement.
Thank you, Ms. Belinda. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lyndon Waller. My day job, I serve as the Deputy Director for the Georgia Coalition for the People's Agenda. We're a 501c3 nonpartisan voting rights advocacy organization where our mission is, everything voting. So voter registration, education, and mobilization. Also, I helped found Black Male Initiative Georgia. We are the brother organization of Black Women's Roundtable, and our main focus is just ensuring that Black men and their households are collectively well. So we have 5 pillars in which we focus on work, those being civic engagement, criminal justice reform, mental health and wellness, economic empowerment, and education. So thank you all for allowing me to be here. Civic engagement is important to me because, it literally, it's our way to build power without being involved politically, being engaged civically, and getting everybody involved and actually exercising their voices. We're not going to get anything accomplished in this country.
Thank you, Lyndon. That was a real quick, and I know we'll hear more from you as we go on with the presentation. So, Pastor Scott, please talk to us about who you are and your involvement. We can see that you are a pastor, and pastors have a presence in our community. So, talk to us about who you are and what you do in terms of civic engagement.
Hello. My name is Orlando Scott, and I am the pastor of Amplified Christian Church in Snellville, Georgia, or Centerville. I am also the executive director of Shiloh Christian Mission and Ministry Center, also a chaplain at Northside Hospital in Duluth, and a daddy of 2 kids. Here at Amplify / SMMC, I'll say it that way. We also have a community garden that we are endeavoring to plant organic food for the Centerville community and partner with other organizations that will continue to feed our community with fresh organic food with seeds here in the Snellville community. I'm engaged in education, in again, civic engagement, and we'll talk about the other things. Nationally, I work with my denomination, Health and Human Services Organization, and also the Black Disciples in the Christian Church.
Thank you very much, Pastor. So we're all back and in our respective places and where we need to be. So with that introduction of everyone, I am very excited to hear what our panelists have to say. So for the next 45 minutes, we will engage in a lively discussion about civic engagement. So our section is going to be broken up into 3 sections because we want to kind of get it all under, and an hour is not a lot of time to get things done. But the first section is that we talk about civic engagement so much. So I want each of our panelists to describe or define what civic engagement means for them in relation to the type of work that they do. And Ms. Hardy, we're going to start with you because you kind of kicked off by saying civic engagement starts when you wake up in the morning. So talk to me about what happens when you wake up in the morning.
So for me, it is about prayer, but because there's issues, right? And I think about the quality of life. So that's why I come up with defining civic engagement as to waking up in the morning. And I want our people to even start to think about it because it is your quality of life. And how do you engage when it comes to civic and human rights? All these type things is your day-to-day activities. I know that the Webster Dictionary kind of says something different. It talks about voting, it talks about advocacy, and it talks about volunteering. But I want us to get in the mindset of thinking that everything that is important to my life has to do with civic engagement. And I now wake up to decide how I am going to respond to what's going on in my life, whether I have water, running water, whether I have gas in my car to get to work, whether I even have a job, or do my kids, are they able to go to a school where they can get educated? All of those things happen straight up early in the morning. I'm not going to try to talk because I can. So I'm going to allow everybody to talk because I know on this one, we all have similar backgrounds in the way we define it. But I did want to start out with defining it as we wake up in the morning till we go to sleep at night. So.
But no, Sister Hardy, that's good. But you have time to talk. Tell us a little bit more about when you wake up in the morning and pray, because I know you have some things to say. You know, you are also a member like me of many organizations. And so we have things to say in our organization. So talk to us about how civic engagement relates to the work you do within the many organizations that you belong to.
So I do. So I am the president, being the president of National Council of Negro Women. We have a program called Core 4, but for DeKalb section, it's called Core 4 Plus. And our Core 4 is comprised of the things that Lyndon has already talked about. And you will see that each one of these organizations that we're all a part in, they come together. And I know that we're going to talk about how we come together in the end. But it's social justice, health equities, education, and economics. Those are the core 4 for even how we live. We're looking for justice. We're looking for health equity. We're looking for the best education, and we're looking at the way how we get our money, right? And those are the key things, like a foundation to how we live our lives as we get up. Now, when I think about it personally, yes, I just talked about how I get up and go to my job, do my job. Am I in a great mindset, which is my health? Right? Am I able to team with somebody? That's part of my health as well. And I'm using my education to utilize my professional skill set. And then when I get my paycheck, that's my economics. Now, then I have to decide how I'm going to use that. Do I utilize that by giving my 10% to the church, Pastor? Right? And then I got to go and buy my groceries, which is another factor when we talk about civic engagement. And then to put gas in my car, getting clothes to wear. All of those things come together when we talk about the civic aspect of our lives.
And all of what you mentioned is critically important. I am also a member of the National Council of Negro Women. And you're right, that is the platform for the National Council of Negro Women, and how we relate to ourselves and how we relate to our community. Those things are very, very important. So, Lyndon, Mr. Waller, I'd like you to pick up on foundational work as it relates to what you do and the way you believe in civic engagement. And yes, someone has texted me, are we hearing an echo? Yeah, we do have a little bit of background noise in the background. So if you could kind of mute a little bit your third party.
All right. Am I echoing now, or is it more bearable?
Oh, you're good. You're good,
Okay.
Lyndon.
All right. So I think I was having fun. Sorry about that. But again, like Miss Teresa said, if you don't have those foundational things taken care of, then you're not really engaged civically, or you have more of a reason to engage civically. We all need economic opportunities, educational opportunities to advance those economic opportunities for us and our families. So just being civically engaged just means that doing everything that we can as people and as communities to build up each other, build up our families, build up our friends, our communities, and our resources, so that way we can advance as a people. When I say as a people, mainly I'm talking about as Black folks, but everybody who's a minority, we have similar skin in the game, and for us to actually advance forward, I think we need everybody to contribute to that.
Thank you, Lyndon. Appreciate it. And Pastor Scott, could you please talk about how you perceive we live out our civic engagement responsibilities, coming from your perspective and how you work? Microphone, please. Pastor Scott, your microphone is off.
Okay. You got me? We're good now? I was talking.
Good.
Y'all was getting my good stuff too. So as I think about civic engagement, I think about what our sister Teresa said with the city or polis. I'm thinking about the health and welfare of a community. As I think about that, I think about there's a book by Hancock and Newell. It says that when we talk about the city or community, we're talking about continually creating and improving the physical, social, economic environments that expand the community resources, expands the health and welfare of the places that we live, that we mutually support one another, and that we individually contribute to the welfare of the whole, which is or could be Bantu philosophy of Ubuntu. I am because we are, or we are because I am. And so the development of this philosophy of community engagement, when somebody in my neighborhood or my next door neighbor's son was about to get jumped from somebody else from another neighborhood, I stopped my car and said, "What is going on?" Yeah, I used that type of word. And then I said, "Okay, what do we need to do?" I shot off an email to the principal and to the superintendent of schools and said, "We got an issue and I need this fixed." That's civic engagement to me. And so during COVID, we as a church was giving away food boxes to those who were not working. That's civic engagement. Then we said food boxes is not enough. Let's do a community garden. That's civic engagement. So what we are doing is create systems of mutual aid in the church tradition so that we can see the betterment of our community.
So each of you said a very critical, salient point, very, very important, that civic engagement is how we relate in our community to everything that we do in our community. But more important is how we are involved in the things that we relate to. Sister Teresa, gave the platform for the NCNW. Pastor Scott gave examples of participation that related to the platform that Sister Teresa talked about: health, education, welfare. And Brother Waller talked about voting in relation to and developing those 5-point programs that help lift our communities out of poverty. So I think that we are all kind of in agreement with the overall aspect and the different ways that we approach civic engagement. But we are clear that it is how we involve ourselves in the improvement of our own community. And we have lots of organizations that do that. We've already talked about 3 of them right here in this webinar. And Sister Teresa is shaking her head. She could probably talk about other organizations. So the critical part is that people always want to know, how can you get involved? It's not difficult to get involved in civic engagement. There are women's organizations, there are men's organizations, there are lots of organizations. And at the end, we're going to talk about how you do that. So I'd like to move on, because very often when we talk about civic engagement, people always think of civic engagement in terms of voting. And as you all have pointed out, civic engagement is just not voting. So for this question, I would like to start with Brother Waller, because he is with the People's Agenda and their huge platform is about voting. And so if you would please provide us with some insight into what you all do, and what you think about how we need to relate to voting in our community.
Yeah. So we have the People's Agenda, like I mentioned during my introduction. Our main mission is voter registration, education, and mobilization. So that just doesn't mean we just register folks, tell them who to vote for, make sure they get to the polls. But we're also advocating down at the Capitol. We have a phenomenal policy person who's there every day. We're registering people in all facets of life, whether it be at high schools, colleges, churches, food drives, inside of jails. Literally, if you're out here and you're eligible to register to vote, we're going to register you. But not only are we doing those things, just to get people on the rolls and to make sure that they're able to actually cast a ballot that counts, we also make sure that people have a way to actually speak to their representatives or talk to the individuals vying to be their representative. So I'll go into it a little bit further at the end of the meeting, but we do weekly Tuesday calls where, sometimes politicians will drop in, tell us what's going on, what feedback they would like from the community, or ways that we can assist them. But also we give the platform to our members and other community individuals just to ask questions directly to decision makers and folks who impact, day-to-day decisions in our lives, whether we realize it or not. So the People's Agenda, we were founded by Dr. Joseph Lowry, and we're led by the esteemed Helen Butler. We're just doing all that we can to ensure that, we're doing our parts to make sure that Georgia and the country represents what we want to see.
So, Brother Waller, you have talked about what you all do and the services you all provide. Tell us about who you're doing it with, because y'all got a lot of partners out there. It's not just a single agency. Tell us who you are doing these things with.
So we're a part of the Pro Georgia State Table, but again, as I mentioned before, Black Women's Roundtable, Miss Helen, she's the one of the state coordinators for Black Women's Roundtable, Black Male Initiative, of course, NCNW, RISE, literally tons of organizations, churches. If you're willing to partner with us, and our missions and our goals and our views align, we'll work with you. The coalition itself, we have over 40 member organizations. I'll be on here for the rest of the night, listing them all off. So it just, and for the sake of time and not to miss anybody, I'm not going to say everyone's name, but we definitely have a lot of partners. We know you cannot do this work alone. It's too heavy of a lift.
And tell you, we keep saying acronyms of things that we understand.
Yeah.
But we're speaking to a whole audience of people who are saying, what does that mean? tell us about the Black Male Initiative,
Yep.
and you talk about the Black Women's Roundtable, or Teresa, you can talk about the Black whomever, but tell us about the Black Male Initiative.
Yeah, so Black Male Initiative, or BMI Georgia for short, we were founded back in 2018 after the passing of Miss Rita Samuels, another
Mhm.
stalwart and legend in this game. She always used to tell us, y'all black men, y'all ain't doing enough. Us women, we carrying it all. Yeah, we're carrying the weight, but black men aren't doing enough. So myself, John Taylor, and a few other committed individuals, we took heed to her words and decided to found the organization. It already existed nationally, but we brought it home to Georgia so that way we could do work with it every day. So again, our 5 pillars are civic engagement, criminal justice reform, economic empowerment, mental health and wellness, and education. And so we felt as if we could do our part to uplift black men and their households in these areas, we could someday catch up to the work that the Black women and the Black Women's Roundtable have been doing. And so they do similar work. They've been around quite longer than we have, and they're still active, still doing everything that they can on the policy side as well as the advocacy side, just making sure that women and their families are aware of what's going on and how they can be impactful.
And you mentioned the Black Male Initiative. Can you talk to us about what you all are doing with the jail population? Because I know that is a very, very significant issue about Black men losing their vote once they are incarcerated. Could you tell us what the real deal is?
Right. So we both have People's Agenda and BMI. We both have different approaches to that. One thing that BMI is doing, we're trying to expand our program that we're serving as I'm trying to find the correct term for it, but a second chance or a diversion program for individuals who have minor offenses, so that way they can
Mm.
come into the organization, start volunteering, see everything that we're doing as an organization, and become civically involved in that sense. With the People's
Mhm.
Agenda, we're doing more voter education and voter registration inside of jails across the state, and the reason for that is a lot of people are unaware of your rights if you're not convicted of a felony. So if someone has been sentenced to jail for a non-felony conviction, or if they're just incarcerated waiting sentencing or waiting trial, something like that, they haven't lost their right to vote. So we're going in, educating justice impacted individuals on their rights, making sure that they have what they need to register, and then giving them information on how to vote absentee.
Absentee voting is a big deal. And we've seen in Georgia the last couple of elections how absentee voting has improved the outcomes of people who are voting overall. So that is a wonderful thing. And so, Pastor, you're up next. Talk to us about how you all relate to voting as it relates to civic engagement. What all are you all doing on the minister side?
Right now, we're having this conversation and
We
looking
always
for
want to know what the
partners.
ministers are doing. What the ministers
Right.
doing?
The ministers are trying to get folks active, providing avenues for these types of organizations to hear what is going on and how to get people mobilized. For me, I have not been engaged in voter registration. Uh-oh. Um,
I
uh-oh.
know what.
Yes. Um, that's why I'm having you all in this space and place so I can
Yeah, you about
start
to get
mobilizing.
fired.
Yes, so
Sister
I
Hardy,
can.
tell him he's about to get
So
fired.
my my engagement is having this space so that we can partner up and
Mhm.
create uh, these activities in this space. What I have done in this area is have town hall meetings and
Mm.
brought in the
Mhm.
public works, brought in planning, brought in the uh, the county commissioner, economic development, so that the people can hear what the county is doing in the area so that we can shape what this community looks like. So for voting, no, I have not been active that way, but bringing out the public servants so that the people can engage them at a face-to-face level. So I'm excited about Brother Waller and Sister Hardy, so how we can partner together with you also, uh, Sister Pedroso, so that we can find some activities in that space. So for me, it's also relationship building, right? Because without relationships, we're reproducing efforts. So we don't have to do that. We have organizations that are on the
Thank you.
ground doing good work. And so why should I have to be out here as a solo individual when I have partners like yourself? And that's, I think, part of our problem. We don't work together and and unify our efforts. So yes, I am looking to partner in that space, especially in 2024. We'll be continuing to have these types of uh, roundtables so that we can, again, gain that energy.
So this weekend, we've all honored Martin Luther King Jr. Weekend, and the president of the National Council of Negro Women, Siobhan Arline Bradley, spoke. And one of the most profound things, I mean, she said a lot of profound things during her keynote speech, but one of the most profound things that she said, and that I wholeheartedly agree with, is that everybody has their place and position. You got to know what your position is. Don't worry about other people's position. You play your own position, and then we will all do well. And essentially, that's exactly what you've just said. Your position was to provide the avenue for us to get together to have this conversation. And I'm glad, because we need more of these conversations. If we could do these things once a month, once a week, it would be wonderful, because our job as advocates is to bring the information to people. And technology and social media is a great way to bring the information. So, Pastor Scott, while I was joking you, I want to thank you very much by providing this space. Sister Hardy said, "We ain't joking you. We about to put you out on the line with Lyndon, so you can register some people." But no, you are playing your position, and I appreciate that. Each of us are playing our positions and doing what we are supposed to do in the congregation. Okay, we're congregants. We're doing what we're supposed to do in the congregation. So I'd like to get back to voting.
You're
And
going to have to catch me because I'm running a whole lot of different directions.
I know how to catch you now. We talked about we're not doing enough, or there's some things that are going wrong. And Sister Hardy brought up a very good point. We have elected officials out here trying to do stuff for us. But the question is, and for everybody who's listening to us, we'd like to know, or please share with us, our speakers, our panelists, how do we drive the conversation about supporting our elected officials to help us improve what's going on in our community? That part of civic engagement. We want to drive the conversation, bring the conversation home to our elected officials so they know what we need. Part two of that conversation is, how do we best support our elected officials to do what we need them to do in our communities? So
Can I
I
say
think,
something real quick?
sure.
When I was in Clayton County, there was a sister that was looking to get elected, and we had conversation. And through that conversation, there was trust built. And through that conversation and trust, then I became a evangelist for her work that was solicited. And what I believe that we need to do is engage them in conversation so that we can build trust and accountability. Because when they know that we gonna check them, they gonna do what's right. Or we're gonna have to get the community together. I'm gonna say this: when that county was trying to take the Livesey land, I went down to Brother Chad and said, "Hey man, what can I do to help?" He said, "Show up at the county commission meeting and show support." We showed up, and they had to do a 180 of what they had planned to do. And that to me is how we keep them honest and how we as the people show our support for each other or our community.
Absolutely. You know, when you show up to these meetings and demonstrate the power of your vote and support and participation, things happen. But you're right, you got to show up. The greatest show of support that I have seen throughout my entire advocacy life has been what senior citizens do. When they start talking about cutting senior citizens' budget or cutting senior citizens' transportation or not building senior citizen facilities, Lord have mercy, all the silver sneakers in the world show up, and they show and demonstrate their power. And they talk to the legislators and call them out and say, we voted for you. Now, this is what we need in our community. And so you are absolutely right. The power of participation and the power of support is demonstrated through people showing up, right? Like you show up to your job every day, right, to get your check. So you need to show up every day, right? Sister Teresa, laughing. Right. That's your show of support. That's what you do. So, Sister Hardy, do you want to pick up on that, or y'all can just go for it now?
Yeah, I'm actually going to let Pastor know, like, as of now, okay, I'm coming into your congregation and I'm going to educate your congregation, right? I do it all the time. This is not a new thing. And we do not have to wait until election season. And I don't have a day off, right? Elections is 366, 65 or 66 days of the year. And I think what's happening to us is we're always reactive to elections. I want us to get in the mindset of being proactive. There's an election every day. The election is every day. And I know working with Lyndon, and I'm part of People's Agenda too, right? We are on the mission every day, right? And I think that's where we got to fulfill the gap. It does start at home, but even from the pulpit, there's things you can do that will not interfere with your pastoral responsibilities. We can do little flyers. We can actually come do it. I've done Bible studies, Sunday school, anytime to actually submit to give that educational piece as it relates to voting. Why do we need to do it in the church? Our civic responsibility started in the church. So for us to get away from it has really saddened me, right? We Black folk need to go back to where it started. All our organizations started in someone's either living room or a church, right? And our living room probably was the church because nobody get to come in it. But at the same time, it starts in a small circle. And Gwinnett is really, really, really like a DeKalb, Cobb, the movement that Belinda was bringing up, when we all came together, here's one thing that we know. When we all come together, we do not have to agree on the same things. We're not one issue people, but we all came together to vote, and we changed the world, not Georgia, the world, right? I had people calling me from Alabama, Florida, everything. Teresa, y'all gonna get it? Y'all gonna get it? We have worked every day trying to make sure everybody got to the polls. Now, one of the things about what Linda and I do a lot of is preparing our people. Preparing is registration, mobilization, and organization. But getting people to the polls and watching those numbers, that's the end results. Or maybe it's the beginning of the results, the way you want to look at it. But we have to get in and how you was talking about meeting with our elected officials. I know every elected official before they get elected or become a candidate, right? I've been in Georgia for 23 years, and there's not an elected official that don't know me or I don't know them. And I did not get into this because they are elected officials. I needed to understand their mindset before they became an elected official, right? And I think that's the conversation we need to have, because at this point, everybody is jumping into the race, and they're not prepared for what's to come because they don't know the historical piece to elections and how it has impacted our community. So it's important that we put that back into our Sunday school and we bring it back to our children so that we can make sure our children understand civic engagement. It is not being taught in schools. It is not being taught in schools. So someone asked that question in the chat. Yes, we go to elementary school. We do not discriminate. We go to elementary, middle, and high to educate them. When do we go? On career day, PTA day, if we even have them. I'm getting to a point where we're going to the football game, right? We have to go where they are because they're not coming to where we are, right? So, and then we engage them by having them be a part of the legislation. They have to become little fellows, right? They have to know to get into that process. How we pick our people. We need to make sure that they're just engaged all the time. That's why it can't be a start and stop. It's always on. I think somebody was talking about no, 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 no. No means on. We're on. When somebody tell us no, we're on to the next. So, Pastor, on today, you are now going to be politically engaged on a good start through the People's Agenda, because Linda and I are not going to let you go through that. The stakes are too high, especially for 2024. And if there's anybody out in this audience that don't feel like they civically educated or inclined to know what's going on, please get in touch with Pastor Orlando Scott, Teresa Hardy, Linda Waller, or Belinda Pedrosi. All of us, if we don't know the answer, we know how to get the answer. But I don't know what your
Amen, Sister Hardy.
I do get excited about this because I've been working with churches and all of that. I meet and they meet. I go to their meetings, right? I go to their meetings. If you have a meeting, Pastor, with your deacons, call me, because that's what it's going to take. Okay. Linda and I already know this about me, and Belinda does too. So all the organizations have to work for one cause. This year, our thing is to get everybody to the polls, that it is registered. Everybody to the polls. Your mama, your grandmama, your uncle, all of them. Okay.
Sister Teresa, you know something? And I think we're all here. Amen. And we agree. Amen. We agree. Well, yeah. And that's the thing about these conversations. I was reading on Sister Teresa. Yes, we do. We all.
Sorry, I lost audio. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, something happening with our audio here. Orlando. I think that we have two speakers going at one time. So one of them we're going to have to cut off. But Lyndon, you're on mute.
Okay.
So, but we can hear. Go ahead. So you wanted to add to
Okay.
that conversation? No, you did. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So I saw in the chat from Danielle, like, what are we doing just to get the youth and middle schoolers and high schoolers engaged? So one of the organizations we partner with is the Stewart Foundation. They start
Right.
engaging students literally in elementary school. And one of the things that I did this past year was just did a civic engagement introduction for them, letting them know, like, hey, even if you aren't old enough to cast a ballot yourself, you can still get involved and have your voice heard in this process. But within the People's Agenda, we have our Black Youth Vote program, and it's a fellowship opportunity for high school and college students. So right now we have over 30 students who are a part of this. And just this past year, they helped, write legislation with Representative Eric Bell and actually introduce that into the state house. So literally, we're doing all that we can in all facets of life, just trying to make sure that everybody is able to use their voice and it's used effectively, especially in 2024.
And I'm glad you mentioned that it's the Hank Stewart Foundation. And I'm glad he mentioned that. Many of you know Hank Stewart from Five Men on a Stool. Well, he has a phenomenal foundation to work with youth in all different facets, and they work in school systems and outside the school system as well. And you can look him up online and talk to him as well about how to become engaged with that organization. So I was reading the chat, and the chat was over here blowing up. And I'm glad. One person in chat said, "This is the conversation that is needed." And he is very, very pleased about how we are having this conversation. And he's right. This is the conversation that we need to have in all of our communities, in all of our churches. And yes, we do have someone else said, "What organizations are you talking about?" Well, the National Council of Negro Women is one organization, .org, and you can look that up. Teresa and I both belong to another organization, which is called Top Ladies of Distinction.org. I am a member of a sorority, and Lord knows that we advocate all over the country. Delta Sigma Theta.org, and you can look at our platform. And then there's Alpha Kappa Alpha.org. And all of these, some of them are membership organizations. And some of these organizations, especially in our churches, you can definitely become involved. In my church, I'm part of the social action ministry. So there are things that you can get involved in that are not private foundation organizations. And certainly, Lyndon would be more than happy to put volunteers to work on things that we have to do, especially when it comes to around voting. So Teresa got real excited about what we're supposed to do. And I think all of us share that excitement in what needs to happen. We know what needs to happen. We talk about what needs to happen, but we're at the point now where we need some concrete information from each of you on what our participants can do to make it happen. So I want each of you to give at least 5 things that people can do. I mean, we're talking about unity. Y'all gave big speeches about unity. We need to be involved. We need to be engaged. We need to work together. How do we do that? Give me 5 concrete examples. And so, Pastor Orlando has been very quiet over there. I know he's thinking. Can you give me 5 concrete examples of what our community members can do to become engaged and get involved in civic engagement? Oh, he's reading the chat. Okay. So, Brother Waller, can you talk to me about 5 things that you'd like to see or you'd like to share with our community about what they.
Yep. So first and foremost is make sure that you're registered to vote. So you can check your voter registration status at mvp.sos.ga.gov. If you aren't registered to vote, you can register to vote there. or you can reach out to me via email. It's lwaller@thepeoplesagenda.org, and I can follow up with you with that individual with a link. Secondly, we have quite a few elections this year. So we have the presidential preference primary coming up in March. We have our state primaries coming up in May. And then after that, of course, we have the general election in November. So I need everybody to make sure that they're voting in those elections. Make sure that they're telling their friends, their family, their neighbors, like, hey, you're just not voting in November, but you're voting in March and May as well. And we all know the state is gerrymandered and is gerrymandering across the country. So oftentimes that election in May is deciding who's actually going to be a representative past November. After those things, I want you to go ahead and try to register on our website as a volunteer. Even if you don't feel like volunteering, you'll still get our links to our Tuesday meetings. That website is thepeoplesagenda.org. Go there again. As I mentioned earlier, we have weekly meetings. Oftentimes we'll have candidates or politicians themselves coming to present their platforms, and you as a participant will have the option of actually talking to them and asking questions directly. And then with all that, just, make sure that you're doing all that you can to do our part to turn out the vote.
Yeah, we always talk about voting. And I hope that you all have experienced tonight why voting is important. Voting is important, just to rehash it. Voting is important. It's important to get things done in your community. Like I said, the silver sneakers, or our senior citizens, they get out and they get things done in their community when they want new senior citizen centers. It happens because they vote. And, voting is really the hallmark of it all. In order to be counted, you have to be present. And your vote is an indication that you are present. You are present and you want things to happen. And I know many of us work and we can't be at all of these meetings, but you can vote. And that's what really demonstrates how your voice is counted. So with that, Sister Teresa, if you would give us 5 things that you want our audience members to do to join.
Okay. Oh, you talking about joining or? Okay.
Oh,
so
no,
here's
5 things that they can do for civic engagement.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Before I get to the joining part, here's what, in addition to what Lyndon said, we're going to do all of that. Okay. So then we're going to do a gossiping thing, right? So you're going to go and call somebody and you're going to talk to them about voting, right? Then you're going to have a social gathering at your house, right? And you're going to have a little tea party or whatever you want to call it, wine and cheese, whatever. And you're going to talk about the issues or even solutions to the issues that you're talking about that relates to voting. Then you're going to do a block party. The block party, you can do the same thing. My point is, we need to be having these conversations. I think someone said that, but sometimes it actually starts with you. And I think I was going to say that when you was talking about Reverend Bradley being the speaker at Dr. King's thing. The thing was, it starts with me. So, and we talked about positions. So get in. I got this little thing called GIF, like a picture. GIF, get information. It is time for us to get information. So you're going to have your party. You'll get on your phone, do the house party, the block party, and then you do your social media posts. Those are the things that you need to be talking about. This is not the time to be talking about Cat Williams, right? Or TD Jakes. It's not that time. It's time for us to actually go ahead and start talking about voting, the things that really matter to us. We need to talk about why our percentage at third grade level is 30% reading. That means 70% is not reading in the third grade level. That is the number that is used to go to the prison system, which is a private entity, to where a lot of our people are going. This is a problem, right? So these are the conversations we have. So when you've done all of this gathering, when you meet an elected official or a candidate, you need to ask them the question, from the discussions that you had. How are you going to make my life better in the areas of education? How are you going to make sure that there's enough funding so that my child don't have to worry about getting a good education when he go to school? How are you going to make sure that if I get sick, that I'm going to make sure I have the right coverage when I go there? How are you going to make sure that my minimum wage is increased so that I can make a decent salary to take care of my family? How are you going to make sure that I really have the freedom to speak? How are you going to make sure that when I have my religious views, I have a right to the right religion? Those are the type things that we want to make sure that everybody is doing on a daily basis. So then we don't have to get ready. We already ready. Okay, I'm gonna stop because I don't know if that was 5, 10, or what. But that the point is we got to get together doing everything that
No,
Linda
you're
said.
on point, and that's
Okay,
what we need.
all right.
That's right. No, you are on point. And those are the things. And my favorite Pastor Scott here always tells me that if you stay ready, you don't
Yeah,
have to get
get
ready.
ready.
And
That's right.
that is the ultimate. If you stay ready, you don't have
Yes.
to get ready. And I agree with both of you, especially about the block parties. I'm a block captain. So you're right. We have our tea parties, we have our house parties, we have our community center parties. And in our community center parties, you need to invite your local legislator. I'm in District 3 in DeKalb County. Invite your District 3 commissioner out to see or hear what you have to say. Send emails to your elected officials and ask them to post it. There is also a community newspaper. It's called The Neighbor or Neighbor Next Door. You can write your own articles and put them in Neighbor Next Door so that everybody in your community can start reading those articles. The libraries are excellent places to have civic meetings. And we used to have meetings every month at our civic library on Wesley Chapel. So there are many, many activities. I know a lot of people said, okay, I work. I don't have time to do all of that. Trust me, it is so much easier than you think, especially in the whole atmosphere of social media. You can have social media meetings online. You don't have to leave your house. You could have a group meet or a Zoom meeting, invite 10 people and talk for an hour about what the issues are and what issues you would like to see proposed in the community for the improvement of the community. And that is something that is really important. So I was getting ready to ask Pastor Scott if he would provide what his thoughts are. He just sent me a text to let me know that his video is frozen. So does that mean that you're not able to speak, Pastor? I guess that's what that means. So Lyndon and Teresa. Lyndon.
Hold on. You might not can see me, but you can hear me.
All right, now. Give me your 5 things that we need to do.
No, really, Sister Teresa, she hit most of them. I would say go out on the internet, look up your local educational, your school board members, go to your local elected officials, your state officials, and the Congress, and get familiar with their policy. Get familiar with what's coming down the pipe. Look at your HBs and your SBs, your House bills and your Senate bills. And then if you don't understand that, call Lyndon and call Miss Teresa, and they will help you get educated on what's going on. Matter of fact, you can also watch these sessions online and be able to be engaged. If you can't be there in person, you can watch the video so that there's no excuse to why we're not engaged. And then within the next week or two, there'll be another conversation. I don't know, Ms. Hardy or Mr. Waller, where that conversation is going to be, but it's going to be another conversation. So we can continue again to be ready for this next session.
Okay, my people. Pastor, I know you were monitoring the chat, and you're right, the hour has flown by very quickly. Were there any questions that stood out in the chat that we should have addressed or needed to address? I know we all were looking at chat and we've addressed things as they've come up. Mm-hmm. Anything else?
One thing though, Belinda, that we didn't touch on, and it's important that we do was specifically talk about, I know we did in general, is the fact that we do have new redistricting maps, and the fact that things have shifted. So at this point, no one is clear, or everybody should check their status, as Lyndon had gave us that mvp.sos.ga.gov. Everybody needs to check, because those things have changed. My understanding, those things have not been updated yet, but in March, when I think it's going to happen around March, it may happen in February, to look for that. But you should know that, expect the change, especially if you're in the metro area. A lot of that did shift from Congress, Senate, and House districts, all shifted. So I just wanted to make sure that we did bring about the redistricting outcome that happened.
Yeah, there was some redistricting. And what has happened mostly are those things that have happened in our local communities. So for the city of Atlanta, they're going to get a new, or some people in the city of Atlanta are going to get a new congressperson. In DeKalb County. And I'm mentioning these counties because our video is going throughout our counties here in the metro area. Most of our district county people have remained the same. Our senators are the same. A couple of our Congress people have lost voting strength in their district. But it is a very good idea for everyone to check their status. And you can go on and, definitely check your status, so you can see what communities you're in to vote. And you can check that on Georgia whatever it is, voting, whatever it is. I know, right? My voter page. Thank you so much for that, because I forget it. But those things are really important, that we do check our status and that we do know who those people are. Right. Thank you, Lyndon. mvp.sos.ga.gov. MVP for my voter page. Check also legislative.org, and that is the Georgia Georgia legislature will give you the bills that are up before the Senate and before the legislative meetings. Thank you. legis.ga.gov. legis.ga.gov. There you can look for the bills that are coming up in Georgia. There are some very important informational bills. And I do have to say that we're not giving you positions on the bills, but we are providing the information to you. So there are going to be some issues coming up about healthcare, definitely, that you should look into, and everybody should know about. So does anybody have any last parting and comments that they would like to make? Brother Waller, we'll start with you. Parting comments.
Yeah. Thank you again for this opportunity, Ms. Belinda. Thank you all to the viewers who tuned in, and just again, make sure that you're registered, up to date, and educated on the issues and topics, and mobilizing yourself and your communities. Thank you.
Sister Hardy, last parting words, Sister Hardy.
Join us in this movement, right? It is not the time to sit down. It's not the time to stand back. It's not the time to be silent. If you're around scared people, remove yourself from the scared people. No more time to be scared. I think you need to be the one that's in position. Like I stated before, it starts with me. It literally does start with me. No one has to give you a position, an organization to actually do what we discussed tonight. Now, if you want to be a part of these organizations, I do welcome you to come a part of the National Council of Negro Women. Yes, we take men. Yes, we take men. You can go to decabncnw.com and join us. Our meetings are the second Monday at 6:30 at Bethune Middle School in DeKalb County. If you're in another county, we can hook you up with some of those organizations as well. So if you would join something, even if it's not your church or some civic organization, something in your community, a school, a business, you can do all of that, but do something. Just don't sit around and not do anything. Most of all, make sure you go vote and take someone else with you.
Brother Scott, parting comments?
Yes, I'd like to thank everyone who tuned in. Please share this with your network. It's very easy. Hit share and send it out. Also, thank you all for the questions. Thank you for the information. I appreciate you all being partners in this journey. And like Sister Teresa said, let's get involved. It starts with us. And we don't need anybody's permission. We can do this ourselves. There is a open invitation for all of us to come and get involved. You have individuals, you have organizations that have said we need all hands on deck. So let's do it. And yes, it will
I
be
would like
recorded and shared.
I would like to thank my guests tonight, Pastor Scott, Sister Hardy, and Brother Waller. I would like to thank you all for joining us tonight for this conversation, one that is critically needed. And as Pastor Scott has alluded to, we will be holding other conversations for the community. 2024 is a huge election year. I cannot underscore how important this year is. I know we always say that every year is important, but this year you got to vote like your life depends on it, because it really does. Any of you who watch the news can see what's happened on who's being permitted to participate in the primary, in which states are excluding people from the primary. So I would like to thank my guests. I thank you all for taking this hour and a half out of your time to share your knowledge and information with our community. And Pastor Scott, thank you so much for hosting us for this conversation. And I'd like to wish everybody good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.